let's get into the hot topic of the week, the last 2 weeks. Firestorm that is Wonder Woman 84. Let's get in
Oh
this shit.
boy.
Because
Okay.
this film has become Batman versus Superman 2. In terms of reception, in terms of,
You think so?
yeah, I think so. In terms of how people feel about it, the mixed reviews, the mixed reaction, how it's very similar to when Batman versus Superman came out and everyone was dogging the film. I've seen certain similarities to that with this new Wonder Woman film, especially by not just by critics, but mostly by fans, mostly by your average moviegoer who went to see this film. Because I'm
Okay.
seeing statements saying that from reviewers, just from people on social media, that this was unwatchable, unbearable, trash, a joke of a film. Patty Jenkins has lost her mind. I'm worried that she's directing the new Star Wars movie. Remove Wonder
Oh my
Woman from
God.
Patty Jenkins. I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing a lot of shit, and I'm saying that these criticisms aren't valid. And not. We'll get into that, but I'm seeing a lot. It's become the new social media thing to do. If a film is sucks. If it's a lightning rod of attention and you see others dog a film, you
Hmm.
join in on it. It seems to be if a film is getting dogged out, you go ahead and join the group. You get you get a few stomps in on the person on the ground. You might even
Post a couple memes.
post a couple memes. You know what I'm saying? You drag her by the hair. You pull the weave off, and you're yelling "World Star" and you're saying this movie sucks.
Okay.
So what do you think? Because there's so many. I've seen so many angles of the backlash. I've seen backlash of her being in Egypt and saving Egyptian children as Gal Gadot is an Israeli woman. So you have that whole controversy of the Middle East. You have an Israeli woman saving an Arab Middle Eastern children. I'm seeing critiques from black people being mad because DC in 1984, DC is a chocolate city. Where was all the black people as extras in the Wonder Woman film?
Well,
Um, I'm seeing just a variety, a plethora of criticisms, and I just want to know, man, what do you think about all the backlash, man, and everyone getting in on this shit?
all
What's
right.
with all the rib shots?
So before we even address the backlash, let's address the actual movie here, right?
All right.
Before we even get into that, because see, I think at some point in time, when we view entertainment, when we look at something, the
Mm,
first thing that we have to do before we get into reading between the lines and getting into being critical of something, the first thing we have to do is view it for what it is and what it is trying to accomplish, right? Do I think that Wonder Woman 1984 is a good movie from an objective standpoint? That's a tough question to answer. Very tough question to answer. I'm somewhere in between. Was it a great
mm,
movie? No, it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things in this movie that didn't make a lot of sense, but what was this movie trying to accomplish is the first question you have to ask, right?
right, right, right.
Before we get into anything else, that's the first question we gotta ask. Was this movie, were they looking to be entertaining? Or was this a movie that was trying to make a statement as to what a female-led superhero movie can do in this era of blockbuster superhero movies? Were they trying to get something on the scoreboard that changes everything going forward? No, they weren't. That's what they were trying to do with the first movie, right? What they
Right.
did with this movie, in my opinion, Wonder Woman 1984, in my opinion, this was a modern day 80s flick. Period. To me, that's what it was. Whether it's a good movie or a bad movie is subjective and secondary to the point of them, Patty Jenkins or whatever. This is an 80s movie transplanted and made in 2020, 2021. To me, that's what it is. I watched Wonder Woman 1984 and felt as though it was a mashup of three movies that came to my mind. The first movie I thought about was Big with Tom Hanks that came
Yep.
out back in the day. That's the first movie that came out in terms of characters being selfish and wanting something and then realizing that what they wanted, you know what I'm saying, coming to grips with the consequences of actually getting what they wanted and how that affected everything else. The second
Right.
movie, it kind of reminded me of were the Indiana Jones movies that came out during that time as well back in the 80s, just in terms of the set pieces and what the characters were actually doing. The fetch quest that the characters were going through chasing one particular item that turned out not to be as important as they thought it was. And I mean, the third movie was a little bit of Back to the Future as well, just in terms of the pacing and everything like that. And even with the visuals, this is the
Hmm.
first movie that I've seen that was set in a particular era that visually looked like it was actually made in that time. This movie looked like in certain parts that it was made in the 1980s.
It did. Yeah. Yeah,
And
man.
in certain parts, it actually looked like that. So from that standpoint, even with the villain being this, this 1980s huckster with a comb over and all of that, obviously the parallels are there with him figuring out a way to get into the White House and all of
Right.
that. But from that standpoint, as an 80s movie, which is what this movie set out to be, did it accomplish what it was looking to set out to actually do? Wonder Woman 1984 objectively might not be a good movie, but it is still a good 80s movie because that is what it was actually setting out to be in the first place. What
Mm.
are your expectations going into a particular movie, and how do your expectations affect the way that you view said movie that you're watching? If you went into this movie expecting to be able to write a think piece about it and expecting it to change your perspective on superhero movies, I'm gonna say you went into it with the wrong expectations. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
as it relates to some of the more problematic parts of it, I'm not gonna knock any of those criticisms. The only thing that I'm gonna say is that going into it looking for those particular plot holes and those particular criticisms might have been the wrong move, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I didn't
Mm.
want to get too far away from the question that you asked me, but at some point, there has to be a separation between what you are expecting and what the intent of what is being made is expecting to carry out.
Yeah, man. I think with the average moviegoer going into this, whoever saw the first film was phenomenal, start to finish. The ending, the end fight was a little okay, meh, but overall, it was a great movie. It established Wonder Woman and Gal Gadot as a force to be reckoned with in the superhero genre, and she became a pulp culture icon. Let's be real. She became a pulp culture icon, and Wonder Woman became kind of up there again. I mean, she was always up there, but she really became up there in the stratosphere of a Batman, Spider Man, Superman, Wolverine.
And they beat the guys across the street in terms of putting out a female focused movie that
Hmm.
also ended up being a good superhero movie, but also a good movie in addition to that.
Yeah, they did. And with that, heading into number two, and how drastically different tone, drastically different story, drastically different in almost every regard to the first movie. People were expecting probably your status quo action romp adventure kind of thing with this one. and it really was turned out to be sort of a rom-com with superhero elements to it in certain
Yep,
regards.
it was an '80s
And
flick.
it was an 80s flick, and people were not expecting that at all. They weren't
Mm-mm.
expecting, let's say, I think like three or four action sequences, action set pieces within the 2 hour plus film. They weren't expecting that. And honestly, you're right. This movie was made as if it was made in the 80s.
Yep.
84. Patty Jenkins' delivery, it's not a coincidence. Like this film was made as a 1970s episode of Linda Carter's Wonder Woman TV series. It's
Right.
like in direct homage to all those moments. I mean, even in the mall sequence, the way
Yep.
she moves the whip, she winks at the little kid in the mall, the way she treated the criminal. It's literally the whole movie is like a Linda Carter episode of the
Corny as
'70s
fuck.
show. Corny, yeah, and it's intentionally done that way. You can
Mm-hmm.
tell Patty Jenkins went in her bag to try to emulate those things, to emulate these, like you said, to emulate Big, to emulate these '80s movies, and to make it a throwback film. She
Right.
really did a good job on making this a throwback film. I don't know. People are complaining about the freaking arcade cabinet. Ooh, this arcade machine, this arcade game came out in '87, not
Oh my god.
'84, bro. Like, but overall, it did transport you to the '80s. It did not seem like wow, there this is like the '90s or 2000. It did feel like it was an '80s movie set place in the '80s. The mall, the way people were dressed, the culture. I think they nailed the '80s aesthetic perfectly for the film. What I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think what Patty Jenkins intended to do, she did deliver. She wanted to make an '80s, 1970s Wonder Woman Linda Carter episode with a big blockbuster budget and an all-star cast of actors and actresses.
Well, what I was gonna ask you to your knowledge, what is your knowledge of the character of Maxwell Lord?
I don't actually have much knowledge of Maxwell Lord. I know he looks different in the comic. To be honest with you, I don't have much knowledge on this character. I thought Pedro Pascal, I think he did a phenomenal job as Maxwell. I think he did a phenomenal job as a villain. He had a bubbly personality. He played the business con man role to the T expertly. He nailed the sleazy MLM hype man guy who you trust with your money and then scams you fucking less than 2 months later. You're like, I have nothing for what I input for what I bought from him. He
Right.
nailed that shit. That was intentionally well done by him. Honestly, I think some of the biggest weaknesses of the film, Kristen
Oh.
Wiig was a clear miscast. Clear
Huh?
miscast. Kristen
And
Wiig
why is
was a
that?
clear miscast, man.
Why is that?
For for one, she was not. It may not be entirely her fault, but she was not very likable in any shape or form or way. And her evolution from I just want to be popular to turning into a cheetah wasn't that was a natural step. And I'm
Right.
not the biggest Cheetah fan. I'm not the biggest Wonder Woman comic book aficionado. I do know that that's a curse that's placed on her, and she craves human blood, human meat to satisfy her hunger. So
Okay.
I know they couldn't go exactly that route, but I'm thinking that definitely her with Gal Gadot, when you have someone like Gal Gadot, you have the ugly swan who's supposed to turn into, what I'm saying, a beautiful, sexy vixen.
Right.
Like the way Michelle Pfeiffer did in Batman Returns.
Talk about it, boy.
This
Talk
is in no
about it.
shape or form or way even in comparison. That's what they wanted. But they
Hmm.
didn't get out of Kristen Wiig. She couldn't deliver that. The more they try to make her look sexy, she looked like a freaking cheap ass hooker, man, with the smoky eye makeup, the lashes, the fur. She looked older for whatever reason. Yeah, man,
No,
she's looking
and
like a cheap hooker.
I'm glad that you kind of and not to. I don't want to use the same terminology you use, but
Hmm.
I'm not in disagreement with you. because for whatever reason, okay, it would have worked. Okay, for the most part, like, okay, at this point in time, bro, and at some point, we will address this on a different episode, right? It has been it's 2021, but in
Mm-hmm.
2011, there was a movie that came out called Bridesmaids. Like, okay, Kristen Wiig, to date, the best performance she had was in that movie Bridesmaids, right? Like her being that awkward, insecure, but at the same time snarky and sarcastic type of character is what she was in that movie 10 years ago, right?
Right.
So for me to see her trying to play a character that is 100% envious and insecure of another woman, I've already seen that in a movie that was better, right? I've
Right.
already seen her play that part and carry that out in a way that made more sense and actually fit her natural personality more than what she was doing in this movie here. So it looked
Mm-hmm.
like she was really acting and playing a part in 84 as opposed to, you know what I'm saying, displaying a part of her own personality in Bridesmaids. I'm only bringing up
Right.
Bridesmaids because if she never was in that movie, I don't think she gets casted in this part. But
Mm.
along the lines of what you're saying, it doesn't seem believable for her to be playing the part of a ultra smart doctor of archaeology that is envious of a more attractive woman when in reality Gail Gadot and Kristen Wiig are both relatively attractive in different ways. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just seems like you're reaching a little bit with trying to make her appear to be something that she is not because you think she fits that archetype. I agree with you 100% on what you were saying there. A little bit of that seemed like a reach. But I do want to bring up a counter argument to you here real quick, right?
Okay. Go ahead, man.
And I know we got to leave it alone at some point. We got to stop doing this. But what is the difference between what she did as Cheetah and what Tobey Maguire did with the black suit in Spider-Man 3?
Oh man.
And I'm only the only reason I'm asking you this, bro,
uh
is just for the sake of conversation. That's the only reason I'm asking
okay.
you this.
The difference between the two of them, obviously, Toby had two films to build up to that
Uh-huh.
moment, and he had his intentions were pretty clear. He just wanted to man wanted some more action. He wanted more fun in his life. Essentially, he didn't want to
Right.
be at the bottom of the barrel anymore. This woman literally changed from I just want to be popular where I work to being I want to be an apex predator. Like
Right. Yeah.
what?
Where's the progression? Where does this make
Yeah,
sense? Right.
where right. So that jump was just like what the hell? I was thinking that the curse of her to attain beauty and personality would be for her to lose it with her cheetah personality. When cheetah was going to come out, I thought she
Mm-hmm.
might grow fur. I thought it'd be a transformation when she gets more aggressive. Where, I thought that was going to be the bad part of the wish. Like, okay, you got what you wanted, but it was temporarily until
Right.
you transform into the cheetah, and then at that point, I thought her head was going to be so gone into it, she wasn't going to revoke her wish.
Right.
So for her to she made two wishes essentially, and she transformed herself to, uh, it was just off from going, I want to be popular to, I want to be an apex predator and be a supervillain. Like,
I agree with you on that.
that doesn't add up.
The progression the progression from being a sympathetic figure to being an outright villain wasn't necessarily there in a way to where it made sense, right?
Right.
And just one last thing I kind of want to point out as it relates to that character. And this is another 80s flick trope, more or less, that
Mm-hmm.
could work in it works in favor of what they were doing with the movie, but it also runs counterproductive to what that character was doing. But The archetype for a lot of villains throughout time is that the smartest person in the room is also the most insecure and poses the most threat. But by being the person that's beat down the most, or by being the person who is considered to be less than based on their intellect, some way, somehow, that gives them more of a reason to be the villain, right? But
Right.
in all reality, if we're really being all the way honest here, right? If we're really just looking at this from a realistic perspective, if you are a doctor of archaeology, if like, because okay, because the opposite, like the gender swap version of that character is Indiana Jones.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
The,
Yeah.
the gender swapped version of who she was working at the Smithsonian Museum is someone who literally travels around the world, risking their lives for artifacts, catching bodies, and sleeping with the most beautiful people that walk the earth. Like that's what Indiana Jones was doing throughout the first three movies that we seen
Hmm.
him in, right? But
Right.
for some reason, I think intelligence, based off of the way it was perceived prior to this era, post Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and people like that, post those type of people, we view intelligence in a different type of way. But during the 1980s, the smartest person in the room, for some reason, was viewed as the lamest person in the room and the person
Hmm.
that would have the most reason to be most likely to be a villain, right? But in
Right.
all honesty, any person who gets a doctorate in archaeology is the one calling the shots. There's, I can't really imagine a scenario where somebody is a doctor of archaeology but is doubtful about their own abilities. No one who is a doctor of archaeology working in the fucking Smithsonian Museum should ever be envious of anyone else. Ever, right? You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Yeah. You getting a fat check, and obviously the FBI wanted her assistance before she made the wish.
Right. So
So,
yeah. So on some level, that part of it doesn't make sense either. But you still got to put it into the context of her being a 1980s movie villain. But
that's
one
true.
thing that one thing that I do appreciate is that we've advanced past the point of viewing the smartest person in the room as being the villain. Like that person really isn't the villain. If shit goes sideways, you really want to be, who do you want to be friends with more, right? Would you rather be friends with Neil deGrasse Tyson, or would you rather be friends with Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson might shorten your lifespan just a
And I
little
love
bit.
Mike Tyson. I love Mike Tyson. Boxing is my favorite sport in life, but I'd rather be friends with Neil than Mike
Hmm.
personally. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But digress. Let's keep going here. That was a side tangent. My bad, brother. My
No, you're
bad.
good, man. You're good. No, it all flows through, man. That villain archetype. I mean, it was done in Iron Man 3. It was done in Amazing Spider-Man 2. It was done in Batman Forever. It's been done so many countless times, and it's. I think to do this again in any superhero film, that's DOA. That
Yep.
is most definitely DOA. I think this is the last time. I mean, this didn't even get away with it. So to try to do it again, I don't care what character, I don't care how comic accurate. Oh, this is the way they were in the comic. You're gonna have to change it. You're gonna have
It's
to
not
switch it up.
believable. It's
It's no
really,
longer believable.
yeah,
Yes.
it's really not believable. But it works. It's weird though, right? Because it works, but it also, you see through it, but you understand it because the setting, right?
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
an 80s movie. This movie is literally transplanted from 30 years ago and made now. That's the only difference. If this movie
Hmm.
came out in 1984, I don't think there would be any real complaints. If Wonder Woman 1984 actually came out in the year 1984, I think the way audiences view it would be different.
Yeah. Yeah, no lies there, man. Even if it was take out Gal Gadot and put it as Linda Carter, whenever whatever age she was, if you would
Hmm.
have done it then with her in 1984, we would have all been like, oh, it might have been looked out like Superman and Superman 2. You know what I'm saying? Like it might have been
Right.
looked out like that.
I
Like,
mean, for oh my god, and you know, look, I still haven't seen New Mutants, but come on, man.
all right. So I was gonna go into this later on, but I'm gonna go into it now. Because some people were claiming that this Wonder Woman 1984 was trash and unbearable. But I'm not going to say this movie is perfect. I'm not going to say that this criticism that they got going for it isn't undeserved. Like, I'm not going to act like a Snyder head and say you don't understand this film.
No,
It
not
was
at
made
all.
like it was in the 80s. You just don't the grasp of Patty Jenkins' vision. Like, I'm not going to act like that. Like, there's legitimate criticism to this film, and I totally get that. But I'm not gonna act like I didn't go into the movie theaters and saw New Mutants. I'm not gonna act like I saw the new Hellboy remake in theaters.
Holy shit! Word.
I'm not gonna act like I didn't see Harley Quinn Birds of Prey. And are me and you gonna act like this Wonder Woman 84 is such an unbearable trash movie? We both went to the theaters to see Dark Phoenix.
Not at all.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Not at all.
I think I think people are a little bit I think people are a little bit out of hand with some of these comments and these outlandish kind of claims because obviously, I mean, they must have not seen Dark Phoenix. They must not have seen New Mutants. They must not. They had. There's no way they could have saw the Fantastic Four reboot from 2018. They didn't see Ghost Rider. They didn't see the Crow City of Angels. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Punisher Warzone, which is a really good bad movie. But
yeah,
yeah,
right. So I can't sit here and say that 84 is trash when I've
no,
seen much worse.
right.
Way much worse.
Not when Justice League and Batman versus Superman preceded this. Like, we really got to start being a little bit. And again, like for me, the way that I view movies now, kind of having not necessarily open my eyes to it, but I pay more attention to what I watch now.
Hmm.
So, with just keeping in mind, okay, what am I looking for out of this particular movie? And then how do I feel about this overall? You know, Aquaman, for example, you worded it as well as I could have worded it, right? Better than I could have ever worded it. You told me that Aquaman was a live action Saturday morning cartoon.
Hmm.
And at the time when you told me that, I still hadn't actually seen that movie. But when I seen it, it made sense to me, right? You
Yeah.
literally had a villain in this movie, Black Manta, who was turning water into a fucking laser, right? This man
Yes.
literally had a water gun. A water gun, right? But for what it was they were trying to do with that movie, they were able to accomplish it within that context. Aquaman was fucking silly from beginning to end, but it was entertaining and they were looking to make that into a live action Saturday morning cartoon, right?
Hmm. Right.
Was it a good movie? I can't judge that based off of how entertained I was by it. Was it a bad movie? Maybe. I don't know. With Wonder Woman 1984, they set out to make a modern day 80s movie. Did they accomplish that? Yes, they did. Does that make
Hmm.
it a good movie? I don't know. I I can't call it. You know, my criticisms of that movie aren't gonna go away. They could have cut 30 minutes out of that movie easily. The fact that
Yeah.
that movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes plus, that takes away from the replay value. It will be very difficult to go back and rewatch Wonder Woman 1984.
No, no, I agree. I agree, man. Because I'm looking back. I would say Aquaman was a good movie for what it was trying to do,
Uh-huh.
and I think you just got to look at it like you just like if you like expectations, right? And looking at it and seeing where the director was going with the vision. Did they nail what they were trying to go for with that film? And I think if
Right.
you went into Aquaman thinking that you're going to see the Dark Knight, you are out of your fucking mind. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Like that's not gonna happen. If you went into, I guess 1984 expecting something dark or expecting
Right.
something realistic, that's again that was not gonna happen. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I mean, if you went to see the Joker expecting to see Suicide Squad lights and music, that again that didn't happen either. You know, so it's
Right.
like the expectations of what you're looking for in this film. Like a perfect example, we'll go with Last Jedi. The Last
Mm-hmm.
Jedi, right?
Oh, let's get it.
People
Let's get
fucking hate this
it.
movie. Star Wars fans hate this movie. I used to
Uh-huh.
hate that. I used to hate that movie. Me as a Star
Okay.
Wars fan, I used to fucking hate The Last Jedi. And over the years, my criticisms of the film and what they did to the lore and Star Wars canon is still there. But I can't say that movie is trash when you look at the cinematography, you look at the
Mm.
acting, it told a story. There's been a lot worse. I'm not gonna sit here and say Last Jedi is one of the worst movies I've seen in my life. I'm a,
Right.
I will say that as a Star Wars, like Last Jedi is one of the worst Star Wars movies in mine. Like I will say that as a Star Wars fan, yes, like because of the lore. But I can't say that it is truly, you know what I'm saying? Like it's truly a bad film. Like it's one of the worst things I've
Right.
ever seen ever. I can't really say that as a film. It is a decent, solid film. You know what I'm saying? I think
Yes.
again with fan expectations and looking, I can't say Wonder Woman 1984 is a trash film. I can't say that, and I guess
Right.
objectively looking, also, I can see people saying, well, I was expecting a teen drama from looking at the New Mutants movie, and that's what I got. But I've seen better teen dramas than that. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like there's better quality teen drama films or better
Right.
quality horror movies than that. So it's not the best at what it was trying to do. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, the Power Rangers movie was not the best it was trying to do. Far from it. If
Right.
you went into that movie wanting a Lifetime original channel with teen angst and a few mecha battles, sure, you got and some Krispy Kreme,
Nah.
you got what you wanted.
Nah, man. Like, bro, watch the. All you gotta do is watch the fucking Breakfast Club, man, or Ferris
Yeah,
Bueller's Day Off. Like,